As global warming advances, increased climate variability presents new challenges to farmers across the developing world.
We've seen a rise in sea level, we've seen an increase in the occurrence of hurricanes and typhoons.
Can tropical countries like Vietnam use new climate tools to predict and plan for coming changes?
Right now, a lot of countries are working in crisis mode. There's a lot that we can say that's just not getting into their hands right now.
In 2018, I was chosen to be part of one of the first Columbia World projects, a program designed to connect the work of Columbia researchers with pressing global issues. This is a fantastic idea and the culmination of about 6 months of thinking.
At Columbia World Projects, we're really trying to develop projects where research and scholarship can come to bear on a big social fundamental challenge.
The project was designed to focus on climate's role in global food production.
Hunger and malnutrition continues to be a major challenge for the world today. One of the key factors in dealing with hunger and food security is climate.
The project is called ACToday, and it is run out of Columbia's International Research Institute for Climate and Society, located across the Hudson from Columbia's main campus.
Because about 80% of developing countries are still dependent on rain-fed agriculture, they don't have irrigation. If they have a drought year, or they get too much rain in too short of a period, that's a real problem for them. And all of those things we can help inform. And we can think about what would be the actions that you would want to take if you were anticipating a season like that.
The program was built on a successful pilot previously run in Uruguay by IRI research scientists from 2013 to 2018, in which climate information on a 2 to 5 year timeline was provided to farmers and planners.
The Uruguay project was a combination of good luck, good planning, and good science. The Ministry of Agriculture was able to take information provided by the Meteorological Service and help farmers increase their yields, improve food security.
The idea of providing detailed seasonal climate forecasts to people who that data affects most was a radical one. The plan was to see if the models used in Uruguay could also be expanded to 6 new countries: Vietnam, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Senegal, Guatemala, and Colombia. My colleague Claire and I would be focused on Vietnam, one of the world's fastest growing economies and one of the most vulnerable to climate change. I think Hanoi is a city of contrasts. Flying into Hanoi, you're surrounded by rice paddies everywhere, and then you take a 20-minute drive and there are skyscrapers higher than a lot of places in New York City.
Hanoi is a very charming city. I think you can still see some pieces of the French time.
We began our trip with meetings with government officials with the goal of understanding the quality of climate information currently available and to get the permissions we would need to travel to the field. It was very important for us to understand the structure of the Vietnamese government, to figure out if IRI wants to make an institutional change, who do we want to make an institutional change with? We realized that the Vietnamese Communist Party put in place an extensive network for training farmers in the form of its National Farmers Union. It was agreed that our team would travel through the country and reach 2 key areas, the low-lying center of rice production and the mountains to the north. Our goal would be to understand how climate information was impacting Vietnamese food production and how information about weather was reaching local farmers. We began our research in the Ha Tinh region, a crucial coastal agricultural area. It was near the former border with South Vietnam, an area that had seen heavy action in the conflict the Vietnamese now call the American War. Since the end of the conflict, the region has become a central area for rice production.
Since 1975, the reunification of Vietnam, the government has placed a very high priority on food security. Yield per hectare has increased from 2 tons in 75 to almost 6 tons per hectare today.
But while this region saw big gains in rice production, it is also one of the provinces most impacted by climate change and increased climate variability.
From the oldest person to a very young child, everyone is very attuned to what the farmers' needs are and how they're impacted, and therefore they understand the impacts that climate is causing.
In our visit with local farmer cooperatives, we learned how changing rain patterns and hotter summers had impacted local production.
It was important for us to meet with stakeholders all the way from the national level to the ground level to understand what is the role of every stakeholder in that chain.
We need to know how are they interacting with the land. What impact is climate variability or climate change having on their day-to-day lives? But while the government has recently built resources, including suggested crop calendars, they fail to include updated climate information in this planning. We realized that while Vietnam's National Weather Service provided information on coming storms, it was often late or inaccurate.
When I talk to someone about climate, farmers are naturally attuned to the changes in the season, in the weather, in the climate over time. They immediately know that, yes, we have this really terrible drought recently and it impacted a lot of people, and it would be great if you can think of some kind of ways to help alleviate those kind of impacts.
We also realized that increased climate variability meant that the signs that local farmers used to predict seasons and time plantings were no longer accurate.
The farmers, for generations, they learn how to navigate by checking for certain signs about the weather.
What happens when the information that your grandfather passed on to your father and your father passed on to you is no longer useful or is no longer valid? And that is a question that these farmers in Vietnam have been trying to address now or trying to come to terms with. For the final leg of our research, we traveled to the northwestern mountain region of Moc Chau. It is a beautiful area with fruit production crucial to Vietnam's development plans. It was also an area that was chosen for a bold new government experiment designed to include climate information in farmer training.
When we went to Moc Chau, we learned that there was this public experimentation going on, that the government wants to restructure its organization regarding the agricultural technical services.
If a new system of climate information were to be created, farmers would need to be active partners and be able to believe and trust in the new predictions.
I hope that we would make a difference in enacting a system where people can rely on the information in order to make better decisions ahead of time so that they can alleviate those terrible impacts.
A review of the existing system revealed that more detailed and accurate climate modeling could deliver huge gains in productivity. Looking at this value chain of agriculture, data plays a huge part in each and every step, whether it be in ensuring that you put in the right inputs at the right time, whether it be ensuring that your per square foot or per hectare yield is optimized. Back at Columbia's IRI campus, data from our field study in Vietnam is cross-referenced with data from other teams working in Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Senegal, Guatemala, and Colombia. One of the common themes among researchers from all 6 countries was the need for better data, especially historical data.
There's just a dearth of climate information, whether it's monitoring or having historical analyses that can help you understand what's happened in the past.
The project hopes to prepare countries for the long-term adjustments that adapting to climate change will require.
What these extreme events do is they provide a learning opportunity. I think they really get people's attention about what was causing that extreme event. Could we have prepared for it? Under climate change, might we expect more of those types of things in the future, so we should be working on infrastructure.
Another key takeaway was the need to work with local partners for the project's long-term sustainability.
We have to work with the Vietnamese government. We have to work with these institutions in place collaboratively. We have to transfer the capacity to the country so that when the project is over, the impacts are lasting.
If you're really trying to revolutionize the world and try to improve people's lives on a big scale, in a sense, you're going to have to figure out how it is that your pilot in X location actually can work in other places.
We hope that as we talk about our successes and the countries talk about their successes, that other countries will get an interest in doing this, and that we will be able to scale this up from 6 countries to ideally 150 or more countries.
Unfortunately, the changing climate will provide crisis events that will continue to push climate to the forefront of all debates about global food and hunger.
I mean, the reason we exist as a university, I think, is to advance knowledge and to advance knowledge that can be put to use in the world.
As a university, we can actually facilitate public sector and private sector work in an area, make it more strategic, improve it, enhance it, for example, by making transparent the kind of data and work that you're doing across the board.
To improve Vietnam's climate services, many things will be needed. New sensors, better modeling, and most importantly, a better way to get climate information to last mile users.
We don't have a lot of time to waste. The impacts of climate variability and change are here right now. They're here this season, they're here next season. So we need to act very quickly.